Right. So extremely sorry about that, guys. We had a power cut just now, so we just set up a new the generator. So yeah, so I'm gonna continue my presentation on where I ended it off, or actually got cut off. So the responsibilities of a project manager, right? So I was talking about timelines, why it's important, what are the tools that are used, and how we can adjust to that. So next, um, project quality, right? So I'm going to touch upon this because it's really important, maintaining the project quality. As if you're going to be a project manager, the maintaining the project quality is really important, because the main two things in a project, or when you're doing a project, is giving the client, maintaining the customer satisfied, maintaining the client satisfaction, and also maintain the project quality, right? So for that, as a project manager, it's really important, before you give something out to the customer, you have to check it, right? It doesn't mean that you have to check the whole thing. That's why there are QAs, right? Quality assurance. But as a project manager, having a rough understanding, because if you are someone who is working on a lot of projects, right? Say 6, 7 projects at the same time, you can't have the whole scope in your mind at the same time. But as a project manager, you have to have a rough scope, or a thorough understanding of what the scope is, and then check the product, right? Basic things, right? How are the UIs? Are their placement all right? Have the validations been done properly, right? Form validations, because those small things add up to the whole user experience. So it's really important as a project manager. There are QAs to take care of all of the the in detail quality assurance, but check the product. Check how the UI is, whether every function is working as it's supposed to be, right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාලා ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක චෙක් කරලා බලන්න කස්ටමර්ට යවන්න කලින් මේක අපි ප්‍රොමිස් කරපු ස්කෝප් එකේ තියනවද, බේසික් ෆන්ක්ෂනැලිටිස්, බේසික් ෆීචර්ස් වැඩ කරනවද, රෙජිස්ට්‍රේෂන් ලොගින් එකක් වැඩ කරනවද, ඒවල වැලිඩේෂන්ස් හරියට කරලා තියනවද, ඒවල ඒ කියන්නේ හරියට ඔයාට යූස් කෙනෙක් හැටියට යූසර් කෙනෙක්ගේ පර්ස්පෙක්ටිව් එකකට බහැලා ඔයා ඒක ටෙස්ට් කරලා බලන්න රෆ්ලි. එතකොට තමයි ඔයාට අන්ඩර්ස්ටෑන්ඩ් වෙන්නේ හරි මේකේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් ක්වොලිටි එක පොඩ්ඩක් අපිට මෙතන ගැටලුවක් තියෙනවා, ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඒක කෙලින්ම ක්ලයන්ට් යවන්න කලින් ඔයා එතනදී ඉන්වෝල්ව් වෙලා හරි අපිට මේ වගේ ඩිලේ එකක් තියෙනවා, අපිට තව පොඩි කාලයක් දෙන්න, මම ඔයාලට අප්ඩේට් එකක් දෙන්න, right? එතකොට අන්න ඒ වගේ කොම්ප්‍රොමයිස් කරන්න වෙන සිටුේෂන්ස් තියෙනවා. ඒතර really important ඔයා user experience, user කෙනෙක්ගේ perspective එකට බහැලා එන්න ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක බලන්න, right? ඒත් එක්කම ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් ඒක important, because නැත්තම් client අපි ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් කොච්චර හොඳ product එකක් end එකේ deliver කරත් middle අපි එයා satisfy මම කිව්වේ client එක කියන්නේ අපි journey එකක්. එතකොට ඒ journey එකේදී අපි හැම point එකක්ම හරියට එයාට deliver කරන්න ඕන. end product එක විතරක් නෙමේ, the whole that builds up the whole satisfaction, right? It's a journey. එතකොට ඒ හැම පොඩි points එකම අනිවාර්යෙන්ම touch කරන්න or involved වෙලා බලන්න, or intern කෙනෙක් හැටියට start කරනවා නම් මේ වල thorough understanding එකක් තියාගන්න, because this will be very helpful. So that are the most responsibilities that I'm gonna touch upon next. Right. So going to the next slide. Right. So skills a project manager should possess: problem solving. So you can understand projects are always a ton of problems. A proper plan at the start and all of it will reduce that problems. That's why you should have a project plan, but there's going to be a ton of problems that you can encounter, because sometimes there are problems that you face when you're ongoing with the development. So it's really important that you have that skill of problem solving. Next, listening. Sometimes developers can say, okay, I have this problem, I have this constraint, I have this issue with achieving this, I have this constraint. So it's really important, okay, listen to them, then analyze it, and then come at a decision, right? So if a developer says, all right, I have this I'm working on feature number 1, I have this constraint with the working with the timeline. I'll be, it will take a bit of timeline for me to deliver, and then you as a project manager, you have to give the update to the client. So it's really important that you listen to the developers and also the client also, because that's important. Listen to the client, what he says. Sometimes, when you give something, he can say, this is not what I'm expecting, this is not up to my expectation. So as I said earlier, my ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වාගේ client කියයි මයික නෙමෙයි මම expect කරන්නේ. මේක my expectations වල නෑ කියලා. එතකොට එන්නේ එක වෙන්න පුළුවන් අර පොඩි පොඩි දේවල් වල එකතුවක් නිසා ඒක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට ඔයාලට කරන්න පුළුවන් බලන්න ඇත්තටම in depth ගිහලා කොතනද issue එක තියෙන්නේ. ඒක identify කරගෙන ඔයා ඒක address කරන්න ඕන. Right? So ඒක communicate කරන්න ඕන. Good verbal communication is a really must, right? ඒ කියන්නේ this is, I have seen this a lot of places, right? Person in my university, in the workplace, and everywhere, communication, right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඉස්සරහට ඇවිල්ලා කතා කරන්න. බය නැතුව කතා කරන්න. වැරදෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක කතා කරන එකෙන් වෙන්නේ ඔයාට doubts තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඔයා shy වෙන්න පුළුවන්, බය වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but ඒ ඔක්කොම ඔයාලට ඒ කියන්නේ හරි ගැස්සෙනවා, right? එතකොට that means, communicating is really important, right? There's an art of communicating also. You can't just say, just because, client said something, okay, they are not happy or they are angry, and give that pressure onto you. You can't go and drop it on the developer and say, what are you doing? Where's the, result that we want? We can't do that, because developers are also working under pressure. So it's really important that you, communicate what you want to say in the correct way, right? In the right way. Just because you feel something in some way doesn't mean that the other person is ready to listen in that way. So it's an art. Still, I am also myself learning. So it's really important that, you start learning communication, right? That's how you can achieve, that skill. Next, ask questions. It's important. Sometimes the developers can, or customers can say, okay, this is the problem that I have, and this, right? Then sometimes if you don't ask questions, you can't understand the background or what is the real problem around that situation, right? So it's important that you ask that questions. Okay, what is the problem that you really have? Or why can't we, if someone says we can't achieve this, what is that, why we can't achieve this? Then you can, say, have like another solution and ask, can we achieve this, instead of this? So it's really important, ask questions. Questions අහන්න හැම වෙලාවම බය නැතුව අහන්න. client ගෙන් ඔයාලට scope එක හරියට proper හම්බුනේ නැත්නම් ආයෙත් call එකක් දාලා අහන්න. ඒක කියන්නේ frequently නෙමෙයි, but scheduled ඔයා gather කරාගෙන ඒක proper plan එකකට එයාගෙන් අහන්න ඒක. ඒ clarify වෙන එක අහන්න, because ඒක project එක මැද කරන් යද්දී ඔයා ඒක identify කරලා ඒක ආවොත් එතන ලොකු mess එකක් එනවා. Why? Triple constraints තියෙනවා. Time, cost and scope. Scope එක change වෙන්න ගත්ත ගමම timeline and cost එක change වෙනවා. So initially පුළුවන් තරමක් clarify කරා ගන්න බෑ initially, right? Because ඔයාලා start කරාම තියෙනවා analyzing and planning phase එක. ඒතර ඒ phase එකේදී ඔයාලා ඒ ටික clarify කරන්න. Next, understand and balance priorities. Okay, so it's really important that you understand in a development what are the priorities are, how you have to balance them, right? It's when you're working on a lot of projects, right? When you're working on like 7-8 projects, each project there's a priority for that project, right? There could be project number 5 that is gonna finish this month. There could be project number 6 that has a much more timeline to end. So you have to learn to now think there's less resources in project number 5. So then, and project number 6 has more resources. So you can divert that resource to the project number 5 while also maintaining the project number 6 and adjusting the timeline and in that. So ඔයාලා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම projects වල priorities understand කරන මොන project එකද අපිට දැන් ගොඩක්ම priority එකක් තියෙන්නේ, second priority, third priority, අන්න ඒ වගේ priority එක maintain කරලා ඒව balance කරන්න learn කරන්න. Next, conflict resolution. So developments කරන් යද්දී ඒවල conflicts ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්, right? It's normal in anywhere, when there is miscommunication. This starts a lot with miscommunication when things are not miscommunicated properly. So ඒ වගේ වෙලාවකදී ඔයාලා identify කරන දැන් සමහරලාට ඇත්තටම fault එක තියෙන්න පුළුවන් in yourself, right? ඒක හරියට communicate කරලා නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Or it could be the developers, or it could be the clients, right? They have not communicated it properly. එතකොට අන්න ඒ වගේ වෙලාවට miscommunications ගොඩක් ඇති වෙනම conflicts ඇති වෙනවා, right? එතකොට ඒ conflict එක resolve කරා ගන්න idea එකක් තියෙන්න ඕන, right? ඒක skill එකක් තියෙන්න ඕන. හරි අපි මොකක්ද ඇත්තටම මේකේ base එක තියෙන්නේ, right? එතන මොන හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒකේ base එක understand කරලා එතන ඉඳන් හරි ආයෙත් මේක වෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න අපි solution එකක් address කරන ගමන් මේ point එකේදී අපිට මොනවද ඒක solve කරන්න ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. So it's important that you have the conflict resolution skill. Right. So I'm going to touch upon the obstacles that I faced, right? So the first was implementing processes, right? So when I started off, in the company, in Stefan Innovations, in project management, there were, the only process that we had was the waterfall, right? You take the project, you take the requirements, you finish it, and you give it to the customer. So there were a lot of problems. Some projects were over the deadline, right? Some projects in terms of cost were costing us, it became losses for us, right? So it's important that you implement new processes to counter those problems. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාලගේ existing development process එකක් යනවා නම්, right? ඒක waterfall methodology එකක් අන්න ඒ වගේ මොන හරියක් තියෙනවා නම් and ඒක හරියට work කරනවා නම් ඔයාලා ඒක improve කරන එක it's not an issue. Also ඒ process එක company ට affect වෙනවා නම් company long term growth එකට ඒක affect වෙනවා නම් short term and long term, right? එතකොට අන්න එතනදී issue එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒතර ඒක identify කරලා අලුත් process introduce කරන්න යද්දී there are issues because always mitigating from a old process to a new process, it takes time. ඒකට adapt වෙන්න ඕන developers ලා. ඒකට adapt වෙන්න ඕන management එක, right? එතකොට ඒ වගේ මොහොතවලදී ඒ process එක implement කරන්න ගොඩක් කියන්නේ setbacks වෙන්න පුළුවන්. But what you should understand is ඒකක් implement කරන time එකක් යනවා. එතකොට ඒ time ඒ කියන්නේ from the old process new process එකට move වෙද්දී there's going to be a lot of problems, right? Because our old process එකට අපි use වෙලාදී there's going to be issues. So it's going to be that time is going to be hard. But as soon as you start seeing the new advantages or new positives of the new process, then slowly by slowly the old process we can start moving into the new process. So it's important to all identify කරන්න ඔයාලා එන company එකට ඔයා startup එකක් පටන් ගන්නවා නම් ඔයා startup එකක වෙනවා නම් huge companies වලට යනවා නම් large scale corporates වලට they already have processes in place, then you have to follow it. But if you're doing a startup or in a startup or working in a small scale business, always study the process, see where you can improve it, and always keep at it. Next, communication. As I said earlier, communication really important. සමහර කට්ටිය හරියට දෙයක් communicate කරන්න නැති වුනහම miscommunications වුනහම conflicts, disagreements, ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙනවා. එතකොට it's really important you say what you feel, right? As a developer ඔයාට හිතෙනවා නම් මෙතන improve වෙන්න ඕන, මෙතන change වෙන්න තියෙනවා නම් you should say that. But ඒක නිකන් මේ දමලා ගහනවා වගේ කියනවා නෙමෙයි, but ඒක හරියට ඔයාලට ඒක කියන්න ඒකත් art of communication that I said, art of communication earlier. So ඒක හරිය විදිහට කියන්න ඕන. So as a project manager, if you think there's something that should change, right? Talk, communicate it to others, right? Ask questions. So communicating is the number one thing that I would say is really important in a person. So ඒක communicate කරන්න හරියට what you feel, what you really think is happening in a project. It doesn't mean that ඒක emotional වෙලා කරන්න ඕන කියලා. You have the experience, you have this thing, so communicate it properly. Next, client pressure. It's a lot. Client pressure, when the client has paid for a project or something like that, and we are working for that responsibility, there's going to be a ton of client pressure. Sometimes when the deadlines are over, the clients start to get upset, right? So it's really important that that pressure comes on to you. Then you have a ton of pressure in you, so එක පාටවාට දැන් developer කෙනෙක්ට ගිහිල්ලා ඒ pressure එක දෙන්න බෑ. එතකොට as I touched upon earlier, you have to have the art of communication in delivering that pressure. When you get client pressure, you take it in, you see what's a real problem. ඇත්තටම ඒ problem එක පොඩි දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. but ඒක client එක ගොඩක් affect වෙනවා. එතකොට ඔයා understand කරලා ඇයි මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ඇත්තටම තියෙන්නේ, අපිට ඒක resolve කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා අපි ඒක client වත් අපිට ඒක එතන solution එකක් අරගෙන ඒ client අත address කරලා and we have to address the developer also. So that you can do by your problem solving skill, as I said, really important, and using art of communication. So have that in mind. Next, developers non-responsive. Sometimes when you're working in projects and when you're ongoing, developers can get unresponsive. It's because mainly when they are working in projects, they are under pressure or they are going through working in a high pressure environment. එතකොට අන්න ඒ වගේ වෙලාවට යාලට communicate කරන්න හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ because they are much more involved in the development rather than talking about how the project plan will go or timelines or such things. So it's really important a developer ගේ a perspective එක understand කරලා හරි මෙයා මේ වගේ තත්ත්වයක ඉන්නේ, එතකොට එහෙනම් මෙයා unresponsive වෙන්නේ ඇයි? එකපාරට unresponsive කියලා කියනකොට එයාගේ situation එක study කරලා බලන්න ඕන. But there can be situations where they are really unresponsive, right, without any responsibility. So that's what you should understand is when someone is unresponsive, really see why the situation behind it, right? According to that, address it using the art of communication. Next, mix up of personal life and professional life, right? So personally, you should understand that when you're working somewhere, you have a responsibility to that company because you start your career or your job accepting that responsibility. If you're a developer, it could be a project manager, BA, QA, anything, you are accepting it as a responsibility. එතකොට ඒක ඔයාගේ personal life එකයි professional life එකයි mix කරගන්න හොඳ නැහැ. ඔයාට responsibility එකක් තියෙනවා නම් achieve කරන්න. ඒක initially agreed වෙලා මම මේ කාලෙදි මේක develop කළා මම මේක hand over කරන්න ඕන කියලා. Then you have to see that as a project manager or as an intern, you have to deliver it, right? So you have to see it in others also, right? Identifying where the separation is in between of a professional life and a personal life is important. So eka understand kalla eka deliver karna, right? If you have to work on a project plan or if you have to work on work breakdown structure or you have to come up with a new project proposal or something, it could be. Understand that it's a responsibility and you have to deliver on time. Even if you cannot deliver it on time, if you get late, inform it, communicate it. I'm having this issue, so I can deal with it after later. So it's really important separating your personal life and professional life so that you can maintain a good balance in between them. Right, so I thought this is important. Mangito make important kila touch on kanda what we look in an applicant when we hire, right? So mostly I'm involved in the hiring process, right? So annetanadi mama mainly balanne me tuna, right? Attitudes, communication, knowledge, right? So attitudes kineka it's really important because eka කාලයක build up වෙන දෙයක්. ඒක වගේ personality එක තව factors affect වෙලා build up වෙන දෙයක්, right? කොච්චර හොඳ knowledge එකක් තිබ්බත් communication එකක් තිබ්බත් වැඩන්නේ ඔයාගේ attitude එක ගොඩක් egoistic නැත්නම් කියන දේ අහන්න යන්නේ එහෙමනම් then ඔයාට හරියට deliver කරන්න බෑ, ඒක මේව කරන්න බෑ. So as working as a project manager, it's really important to have a very good attitude, right? An open attitude, right? Listening to others, problem solving. It's important because you're managing a lot of people. So you're managing a lot of products, you have to communicate with customers, you're working with different type of customers, right? So then if you have a very bad attitude, you can't succeed in that stream. So it's really important when the open attitude you maintain you can do a SWOT analysis on you, right? And see what are my weaknesses, what are my strengths, my opportunities and my threats, right? Eva kalla identify kalla attitudes are built over time, right? It's, you know, a collection of behaviors, you can say, right? So you can change it, but it takes time. But what's really important is you have to identify that if you have a bad attitude, that you have to change it. So, you know, take a good look, right? Hiring people, I can tell it anywhere, they look at your attitude, of course, right? So take a good look at you, see if you have something bad, or you know, something that's affecting your attitude in some sort of way, some sort of behavior, right? You know, you can change it, accept it, you know that you have to change it and do it. So in myself also, when I starting off, my attitude and now it's different, right? It's because a learning process එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට පටන් ගද්දි දැන් තියෙන්නේ ඒක දෙකක්. එතකොට ඒ attitude එක already change කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මට vouch කරන්න පුළුවන්. So you have to, you know, maintain that good attitude. Next, communication. I've touched upon many times, I think earlier now, how communication, the art of communication affects, you know, you being a project manager. So always, you know, think about communicating properly, you know, using the art of communication, communicating it properly to the person that you want to, or to the people that you want to. Next, knowledge. So it's important, you know, if you have the other two at best, but you don't have the knowledge, then you can't, you know, get that job, or, you know, the person that you're looking for. Have that basic knowledge, you know what, you know, then ගොඩක් තැන්වල jobs වල දාන responsibilities මොනවද කියලා, right? ඔයාගේ requirements ඔයා මොනවද කරන්න ඕන, day to day responsibilities and skills, right? Skills කියන ඒවා build up කරන්න පුළුවන් skills, right? Requirements or responsibilities කරන්න ඕන ඒවා ටික තමයි ඔයාලට කියන්නේ සමහරලාට ඒ වෙද්දි knowledge එක නැහැ. ඒතර ඒක ගැන search කරලා බලන්න. ගොඩක්ම project management පැත්තට එද්දී ඔයාලට තියෙන skills කියන්නේ requirements responsibilities study කරලා ඉක්මන කාලෙකින් grab කරගන්න පුළුවන් පොඩි කාලෙකින්. එතකොට ඔයා interview එකට යනවා නම් අර වගේ thorough understanding, ඒ කියන්නේ thorough කියන්නේ basic understanding එක හරි අරන් යන්න මොනවාද මේකින් කරන්නේ. අපි Trello software use කරනවා, අත් එක use කරන්න ඕන කියලා තියලා තියෙනවා නම් ඔයා Trello software එක study කරලා යන්න. එතකොට ඔයාලා understanding එක තියෙනවා හරි මේ software එකේ මේක වෙන්නේ මේකයි වෙන්නේ. So madam, ඉදිරියට මේක learn කරන්න පුළුවන් because you're going to start as an intern, right? Because at our company also we hire a lot of interns because we have a unique company background. So ඒකට match වෙන්න we feel is what suits best is interns. So අපිට ඒක බලන්නේ, ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ knowledge එක නැති වුණත් ඒක ගැන පොඩි idea එකක් තියෙනවනේ ඒක ගැන search කරලා බලනවා. මේක තමන් හොයලා බලනවා. Right? We can't always be behind you and say, okay, do this, you know, follow this, right? As an intern, you should have that skill of, you know, looking through different resources, web, books, right? There are many other resources, videos, right? So you have to look at all of those, study, and then, you know, come at a result. So remember, these three are very important because I have hired a lot of people. I have seen how attitudes affect, you know, your overall outcome, how it affects, how communication affects, how knowledge affects. There have been people who are good with very attitude and knowledge, but they don't have good communication. So we have failed them in an interview, right? There are people who have good attitudes and communication but don't have the knowledge. Then again, we have to fail them in an interview. Some people have good, you know, attitudes and communication knowledge not there. So as I said earlier, touch upon these points, do a SWOT analysis on yourself, then you can get an understanding. Right. So my session is almost over. So I want to touch upon, you know, something that's very, you know, this is very something that I'm passionate about. Also the marketing side, digital marketing. You know, in our company, Rusuru also mentioned in our previous sessions, we have, you know, five divisions. SI DevX, which is the web division, SI Apex, the mobile app division, SI Hypex, the digital arm, IoTX and Automation X, right? So SI Hypex, I'm leading the SI Hypex. That is a very passionate personal project of mine because, you know, something I like is to create content. Right? I like seeing new content, innovative content, you know, funny content. So I also like to create content. So because of that, I'm very involved in, you know, SI Hypex. As of right now, we have a team of 4. and we are managing several brands. We are making content for them in social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, right? So we are also going to be making product shoots. So it's really important, in our company, in Stefan Innovations, you have that ability, you are passionate in one thing, you're good at one thing, and you have the opportunity to explore other avenues, right? So that is what I love about a company nature, company dynamics. So yeah, that's a really personal, passionate project of mine. And to finish off, I have included a quote from Henry Ford, the Ford cars, right, the founder. So if everyone moves forward together, then success takes care of itself. When you have seen everywhere, skill up team working skill, like a team work right? ගොඩක් තැන් වලට ගියොත් ඔයාලා ටීම් එකක් එක්ක වර්ක් කරන්නේ. එතකොට ඔයාලට තනියම ඔයාලට දෙයක් අචීව් කරන්න බෑ. right? You can go only so much so where, right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාට ඔයාගේ ස්කිල් එකෙන් යන්න පුළුවන් ටික දුරයි. But as a team only ඔයාලට ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක ඩෙවලොප් කරන්න තියෙනවනේ ඒක ඩෙවලොපර්ස් තනියම කරන්නත් බෑ. ඒක ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් මැනේජර් තනියම කරන්නත් බෑ. BA කෙනෙක්ට කරන්නත් බෑ. You have to do it as a team, right? Then only you can reach at the end destination. So remember, when you're working in a team, always have that open mindset. Working with people, you have to work with people. If you're coming to the IT sector, if you're not going to be a freelancer, then if you're going to work in a company, you're going to be working with teams. So always have that good attitude, good communication, right? So that you can work with a team, right? Because success, you can develop a product, or you can come up with good project plans, good timelines, but if that doesn't reflect in the other team members, then it's not going to happen. Or if you are if the developers do a very good job, but you are not handling the timeline well, you are not handling the customer really well, or something like that, then it's not going to be a very good product either, because you're going to get late, cost is going to run out and run up, and the scope is going to creep. So always understand that as a project manager or internship or something like that, you have to go into a team and work as a team. So always have that good attitude, good communication, so that you can work in a team mindset. And lastly, before finishing my session, I want to touch upon about the new avenue that we're going to do, VolunteerX, right? So අපි Stefan Innovations එකෙන් අපි open කරන අපේ volunteer division එක VolunteerX කියලා. ඒකෙදී ඔයාලට apply කරන්න පුළුවන් various divisions වලින් project management division එකක් තියෙනවා, right? ඒකේ ඔයාලට PM intern කෙනෙක්, BA intern and QA intern කෙනෙක් හැටියට volunteer කෙනෙක් හැටියට join වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාලට skill එක ඔයාලගේ skills build up කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. So at the end of 6 months, you're going to be getting a a certification that you worked in a company, that you have completed the intern as a in your respective division. So there are other divisions: web, mobile, IoT, graphic designing, digital marketing. There are all other divisions. So there are these are few divisions that are in the project management division. So if you are interested in all degree දැන් කරනවා නම් ඔයාලට spare time තියෙනවා නම්, right? ඒක third year වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ, second first year ඔයාලට spare time තියෙනවා නම් join in intern කෙනෙක් හැටියට ඔයාලට අපි ඒ කියන්නේ task දීලා අපි ඔයාලව train කරන ඔයාලගේ skill set එක ඔයාලව up කරනවා, so that ඔයාලට ඔයාගේ final degree එක or real internship එකක් වෙද්දී ඔයාලට company වෙන company එකකට හරි යන්න පුළුවන් associate කෙනෙක් හැටියට, or at our company also, if you are really good, we'll take you in as a permanent employee in the company. So have take a look at that and see whether you can be join as a volunteer, and you can up your skill set, right? So thank you guys, that's it for my session. Thank you for joining in, and sorry about the power cut that we had earlier and the interruption. Right, so next we have the next session. So I think it's going to be done by Prishan and Dinukar on mobile application developments and their journeys. So yeah, thank you for joining, and have a good day. Bye.